You've just had a chance to think about how you yourself manage conflicts, how you respond in the first instance. And that's a very useful bit of thinking to be doing. And sometimes it's quite hard to have that thinking by yourself, and it's good to have that conversation with someone else. And in front of you here, you have a model called the Johari window, which is excellent for getting some constructive feedback about how you operate in the world. The funny name comes from the fact that it was designed by two guys, one called Joe and the other called Harry. In the top left-hand square, you've got an open area, an area which you're aware of and also the person you're talking to is aware of. So it might be that you twitch a lot when you're talking, for example. But to the right of that, you've got an area which isn't known to you, but is known to the other person. So you might know that you twitch, but you don't know that you blink your eyes all the time at the same time. But the other person is aware of that. And down below, in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got an area which you know about, but they don't know. So they might not know that you also have a stammer, but you've managed to get over that one. Then there's another part of yourself, the right-hand corner, which is actually the most difficult to get hold of. How do we respond in situations which we're not familiar with? How do we behave? And how can we increase that area of our knowledge about ourselves? We've been focusing a lot in this session so far on ourselves and how we respond, and on getting to know ourselves better. Well, why is that important? The thing about working with conflict, or even around any communication issue, is that the better we understand ourselves, the better we're able to engage and involve other people in different situations. We're going to look back here at the Galtung ABC. We've already thought about this once, but we're going to think about it again. We're going to remember how important it is that what we see on the surface of people is not necessarily the whole story. It's the tip of the iceberg. And in fact, lying beneath that are people's attitudes, how they think and feel, and also the context that they operate in. So that can be the social context, what kind of background they came to, what kind of opportunities they've had. It can be a historical context. My community has always been on the edge of town, nobody cares about us. It can be a financial context. I had a great job, but now my job's been taken away and I'm feeling very insecure. The important thing for us as practitioners is to remember that when you're working with other people, you have to be aware of both the unseen and the unspoken. You can't just take things for granted. You can't just deal with what's on the surface. The focus of this session is building sustainable partnerships. And if we're going to think about that in terms of working out in the community, we really have to think about who are those partners going to be. Who are the agencies involved? Who are the people involved? And how are they coming to the process that we're trying to manage together? Most successful collaborative structures really build on the strengths of a particular group or a community. And in fact, in many ways, there are a fair few studies now about community resilience, that word that's around everywhere, resilience, how do we bounce back? Which suggests that a community's greatest asset, its greatest resource, is itself. Now, why is that important for us to think about? Well, one of the issues that has dogged a lot of community work, and in fact work in general for years, is this idea of the expert. Who is this expert? Well, very often, this is in fact someone who has done an awful lot of study, who knows a lot, who's read a lot, who's thought a lot, has a lot of experience. And they come to a situation ready and willing to share that with other people they meet. But people don't always remember that when you're coming into a situation from the outside, you may have loads of good ideas, but you don't necessarily understand what's happening in that local arena. And in fact, studies have also shown where people have come in with these good ideas, very often they can take over a process and they can overwhelm local initiatives and local people. There are many conflict practitioners and theorists who would say to you, actually local people are the people who are going to sort out their problems. Building on that idea of the importance of local skills and expertise and how to use them, we're going to look now at a model called the Insider Partial Model, which has been developed by conflict theorist John Paul Lederach. There's more about him in the additional materials folder. But essentially, he's a very interesting writer and thinker who's worked all over the world with different communities and has developed this idea of thinking about how when you've got two groups that are very separated or possibly in conflict, how can you start bringing them together? His idea is, as is illustrated in the little diagram on the right-hand side there, is that you might have very separate groups, but in those communities you will have some people who find it much easier to cross over and connect with the other side, as it were. So these people are the people that you're wanting to look for, and they're the people that we call the insider partials. They're people who understand their own communities and where they've come from, but who are able to open their minds to listen to people from the other side of a divide. They are an incredibly useful resource. And in fact, we should really admire them because they also tend to be very brave people who are prepared to step outside their community norms. And that is not that easy. So the insider partial model is one that I think we can take from conflict literature and we can think about it in terms of community development and working in communities on the ground, especially if we need to build bridges between separate different groups.